and welcome in to another episode of Irrational Confidence. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow hosts and friends, Lino and Caelan. And fellas, we have a fun show today. As you can probably guess by the title, we are doing shooting guards. We hope you were able to check out our last episode, point guards. I think I speak for our panel here. That was a lot easier. There are a lot more good shooting guards than there are, or point guards than there are shooting guards. So this one will definitely be getting into the sicko territory. We'll be talking about, I don't know, Devin Vassell on-off numbers probably at some point.
We will not be talking about Devin Vassell on-off numbers.
Speaking of Devin Vassell, like we did at the top of the last show, we want to give you guys an idea of who we're counting as shooting guards. We are counting Devin Vassell. That one was a little back and forth. A couple other guys we were kind of back and forth on. We are counting Alex Caruso as a shooting guard. Jaylen Brown and Paul George, we are putting in the small forward category. Yep. Same goes for Herb Jones. If you didn't listen to the last show, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Tyrese Maxey, Kyrie Irving, James Harden were all guys we put at point guards. So like I said last time, if there's a clear and obvious omission, it's probably because we put them in another category. But without further ado, I think we can kind of get into our criteria, what we were thinking. With point guard, it's a little more straightforward. I feel like you want a floor general, passing, scoring kind of combo. Caelan, I'll throw it to you first. For shooting guard, was there a specific criteria, or is it pretty much just best player that falls under this positional group?
So there was a rich tapestry of kind of things I considered. I guess I considered four things. The first thing I considered was my isolation scoring. The shooting guard position. It's a position where I kind of look at it and, the top guys in the league should be guys that can just get you a bucket on a possession where, things aren't happening, or at least draw a foul and get to the free throw line, slow things down a bit. So I gave guys, extra marks if they were great isolation scorers. Second, winning impact. Third was playmaking. If guys can give me a little extra on the playmaking side, gave him extra marks. And then defense, last but not least, defense. If you're a two-way guy, extra marks there. But those four things. What about you, Lean?
Look, I pretty much base this thing on how much do you remind me of Kobe Bryant or Dwayne Wade.
Fair. Very fair.
Valid. Very valid.
How close are you to that? How far are you off on certain aspects of their game? Those are the two perfect shooting guards, and that's what I'm looking for from my shooting guard. And so that's pretty much the only rubric I have is those vibes. So we'll see what happens.
I love that, honestly. I think both of those answers are great. So I would echo those sentiments. I pretty much went the same thing. I mostly just did best player that falls under this umbrella, but definitely consider defense more for this than point guard, just because, like we said, we don't really expect the point guard on a team to play defense. So someone in the backcourt is going to have to guard somebody. So definitely get more of a bump for defense in this, and more of a downgrade if you're somebody that struggles on defense. So with that being said, Lino had the great idea to do a draft of sorts for these rankings. So we're going to do a little snake draft, just kind of going back and forth, selecting shooting guards. We'll all discuss where we had them in our rankings, but we thought it would be fun to kind of do it this way so we can emphasize each guy individually. And with that being said, Caelan has the number one pick in our shooting guard draft. Who did you have at the number one spot?
I'm expecting all of us to have this guy. Anthony Edwards was my number one shooting guard in the NBA today. This guy, he's had an amazing trajectory ever since he came into the league. Some of my favorite things about him is his work ethic. He gets better every single offseason. He's always improved this game. I expect the same kind of similar leap in his game. I think he still has room left in his ceiling. So I think this coming season, he's going to be even better. He's a fantastic isolation scorer, which, I talked about. His athleticism allows him to get to anywhere he wants to on the court. He can hit the mid-range. He can hit the three ball. I'm hoping that we can see an uptick in the efficiency from three. He definitely shot the ball well in FIBA. We know that line's a little bit shorter. He does like to shoot those long twos like his hero KD. So But he is a guy that I do like. Talk about two-way impact. He's a guy. If he wants to, lock you down for a possession or two, he absolutely can. He has a large load offensively, so he's not going to be an every single possession defensive player. But whenever he decides no more, he's a guy you can put on pretty much anybody. So I like that a lot. The playmaking chops are there. We want to see improvement there, but he can do a little bit of that, so that's good as well. So for me, obvious pick Anthony Edwards. Do you guys agree? Disagree? What do you think?
No, I'm pissed. That was going to be my first pick. Now I got to change up my whole draft board. I wasn't
Your whole
expecting him to go
draft
so.
board.
No, that's an excellent pick. Anthony Edwards is definitely up there as far as one of the best shooting guards in the league, one of the best guards in the league right now. I think my only hesitancy with taking him first is just that the lack of accomplishments are, I mean, he's a gold medalist now, so that's awesome. He, had a really nice run last year, but I think some of the friction that comes with a lot of the praise for Anthony Edwards right now is I think the Anthony Edwards haters are like, what else, what has this guy really done for, the stats that he's shown? And he's a
Shout out
young
Magic
guy.
Johnson.
So. Yeah. Shout out to Magic, man. I'm holding it down for you. And I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's one of the best. But as far as just looking at it from all sides, I definitely see, would like to see some more consistency from him and, an improvement on his game year to year that I think we can expect would need to kind of see that happen just at this stage of his career right now. Micah, what do you think about Edwards at that first pick?
Yeah, I like Edwards there for sure. He ended up being my number 2, but to me, there's kind of a big 3 for shooting guard, and they're all in one tier to me. So it's really splitting hairs. But yeah, Ant's awesome. This past season, 26, 5-5 on about league average true shooting, which Caelan mentioned. I think he'll become more efficient as the years go on. But yeah, just a devastating player on offense. I mean, the ability to violently get to the basket the way he can, any possession he chooses to, is his greatest strength. But it also, for me, can become the greatest point of frustration when he takes step back long twos, because I'm like, you're built like a 6'8" running back, or I guess 6'6". Like, just go to the basket, please. So I would prefer Ant to invest maybe a little more in a Houston Harden type shot profile where it's just rim and threes. Maybe not to that degree, but that would be my really only knock, other than the playmaking that Caelan mentioned as well, which again, he's improving. And of all the guys we're about to talk about, will get pretty far down the list before we get to someone as young as him. And that's something to keep in mind here too. He's only going to get better and will probably dominate this list for years to come.
Can I defend Ant's shot selection real quick? Because
Yeah.
I definitely have not always been the biggest fan of Anthony Edwards' shot selection. But I will harken back to something that Steve Smith said last summer during FIBA when Anthony Edwards was, the leader of that younger Team USA, and he was taking a lot of shots. And I remember Steve Smith saying that you can't be excited that he's making some of the tougher looks in the second half if you're upset that he's getting into his rhythm in the first half. Some of those looks that he's taken are what contributes to him being such a great shot maker late in games, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes I think we could give him a little more space in that regard. He is a guy on a Timberwolves team that's not the most offensively strong team, right? So sometimes he is in situations where he has to take tougher looks. So I think I'm gonna in the future be a little more lenient, because I've been as tough on him as anybody when it comes to his shot selection. But
Yeah, no,
that's
those are great points, especially the Minnesota ecosystem point. I mean, he's talked about how you can't go dunk every time if there's 2 7-footers down there every possession. So, I mean, obviously, Cat can shoot, but the point remains, he does not work with prime spacing. I won't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So I'm excited to compare him to the other guys in this group. So to get to that, Lino, you have the number 2 pick. Who do you have at this spot?
And with the number 2 pick in the Irrational Confidence shooting guard draft, Lino takes Devin Booker as his number 2 pick. I feel like this makes the most sense from y'all's fancy schmancy advanced stats perspective, but also from a vibes perspective. Devin Booker is incredible. And this is another guy, Caelan talked about kind of being maybe one of the most critical people when it came to Anthony Edwards' shot selection. I feel like I was one of the most critical people on Devin Booker's impact on winning games and being a part of a team. And I've done a full 180 since the Olympics. That's like the main thing. He had a great season last year, 27 points, 4.5 rebounds, almost 7 assists per game, which is, what you're going to get when you're team doesn't have any point guards. But the fact that he's able to get those numbers is truly incredible on relatively efficient shooting. And I just feel like, as far as the heart of a shooting guard that you're looking for, this guy has it. He shows up, he does his job, he'll do other people's jobs if he needs to. When it comes down to being a star, taking the big shots, having those big moments. Obviously, he rises to those occasions often. But even when it comes down to getting down to the nitty gritty and doing things that aren't as attractive, getting guys set up for their own shots and elevating their play, as well as, digging in on the defensive end and making those effort plays there, or playing on a roster of incredible, Hall of Fame talent and being a role player. Like, he showed that he was so open to being able to do whatever it takes to win basketball games. And that really, I think, took the blindfold off for me that I probably had just as a general hater of the Suns. And just showed me that this guy is a real dude. And when it comes to shooting guards, he's definitely the best around. If I had the first pick, I definitely would have taken him first. But with the second pick, I'm glad that he fell to me. So what do you guys think of Devin Booker at this spot?
I love Book, man. He was my number one. I think he combines everything you want in a two guard, like you talked about, Lino. And for me, he's the best passer at this position right now. Obviously, there's some guys that kind of play the two that are really ones that maybe they're better passers. But for the list we're looking at, I really value his playmaking. When he was drafted, he was on some awful teams and was kind of forced to run point guard, turned it over a bunch. The offense was a mess, but you can see the fruit of those kind of trials and tribulations in his game today. I mean, he can deal with almost any kind of coverage. I'm sure our listeners remember the stop double teaming summer clip from several years ago.
Yes.
When Booker was frustrated in the offseason that guys were throwing doubles at him. But now he thrives with a double coverage like that. He makes the right kick. And of all the guys on this list, he's been the best player on a conference championship team. There are other guys that can probably get to that level, but to me, that means something. I mean, if you're the best player on a finals team, that's a significant accomplishment. And he did it at a pretty young age. He's also, other than Edwards, one of the younger guys we're going to talk about. So still room to improve. One thing I will say, just for people that might be kind of questioning why I have a problem with Ant taking mid-range shots when Booker lives there, is Booker is hyper efficient at those shots and has been almost his entire career. He was 50% from mid-range this past year. Edwards was below 40%. Not saying that that's why Booker is better, just, for people that are like, you have a problem with Ant taking mid-range. It's just about efficiency, and Booker is really good at that. I too, though, would like him to put more of those shots at the basket. He used to get to the free throw line a little more than he does now. So more rim attempts, more threes would be great, because he's talented all over the court. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Devin Booker. Caelan, what are your thoughts there?
I'm a little surprised that both of you guys have Book over Ant, just to be completely honest. And I like Book. I think what I really learned about Book over the summer, and probably my favorite thing about him going forward, is how hard he works on the other end. You talked about him, doing some of the dirty work stuff as a star player. You don't see that too often, but from Devin Booker, he's just shown that he's a guy who, doesn't have the big ego. He doesn't care about, what people say. He works super hard on the defensive end. He's not the, strongest defensive player, but when you have a guy who is working as hard as he works, I do respect that. Now, the reason I did like Ant above Book, and to be honest, I really didn't even spend too much time on it, was because Anthony Edwards, I'm going to take that extra athleticism that I get from Ant. I think Book, he is a little athletically challenged. He's not the most athletic person. I think that makes it tough for him to put pressure on the rim sometimes. He's not the best finisher when he gets there. That's one of Ant's strong suits. I think, I don't know. I think we're kind of splitting hairs. Maybe it's personal preference. I was a little shocked. I think that Book also gets a little more credit than he deserves sometimes for that finals run. I think Chris Paul is probably the most important player on the team. Maybe you could say Booker was better than him, but I think Chris Paul was just super important to that team. But either way, great players. I had Book number 2, and that was obvious for me. So, 1 and 2, not a big difference there. Both great players.
Nice. Well
Absolutely.
said.
I think the only other thing I'll say is that I think those are all valid points, especially when it comes to that comparison between Edwards and Booker. They're much more similar than they are different.
Yeah.
And, they do fill in the gaps in their own unique ways. Of course, Ant is the more dominant defensive player. Booker is the better passer. And so it just kind of depends on how you value those things. But I will say, just kind of looking forward and in that kind of draft mindset, I believe that Devin Booker's skill set also depends a little less on his physical abilities and thus may last a lot longer. Like I could kind of see him having a bit more of like a KD, Chris Paul trajectory career as far as, the length of their careers. Whereas Anthony Edwards isn't super dependent on his hyper athleticism, but obviously that's a big element of his game.
Yeah.
And so as far as, projecting out to the future, I feel like Booker might be the safest bet for me. And so that's why I took him there. But
Fair enough.
all around, I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Micah, do you want to line up your third pick in the draft for us?
Yeah, definitely. And Lino, you made a good point there. I don't think I really said this at the top, but this draft is basically for going into next season. So we're kind of projecting how these guys will look for this next upcoming season is the idea of it. So just to make that clear for everyone. I think you guys gave me a super easy pick. I kind of gave this pick to myself, I guess. But to me, there's a big 3 at the shooting guard position, and there's only one guy left. And for me, that's Donovan Mitchell. And Mitchell, tell me what you guys think about this, but I feel like he's almost become underrated at this point. This guy is so good. He's always a tremendous regular season player. His regular season teams are always awesome. They're always great when he's on the court. And then in the playoffs, there have been some up and down series. I get that. But the ups, I mean, he's had massive playoff performances against good teams. Like he played well against Boston. And that was with a lot of injuries around him. He played well against Orlando. That's a tremendous defense. So I'm just really high on Mitchell. He's a little smaller, but he's so athletic. He's a great passer for this position. He was at 6 assists a game, which is towards the higher end of the guys we'll talk about today. Also similar to Ant, plays in maybe even a worse ecosystem. He's got Mobley and Allen on the court with him so often. Strus and Garland are good shooters, but again, playing with 2 non-shooters at almost all times, or a lot of the time, Mitchell still just finds a way to make it work. For this last season, he was at about 27, 5 and 6, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and was at 59.8% true shooting, slightly above league average. So really effective player. And defensively, there's definitely some fair critiques towards the end of his Utah tenure, but the last couple years in Cleveland, I think he's been fine. He has to guard some of the better guards because Garland is just too small too, and he's athletic, he's engaged. I think he's good enough on that end. I'd probably rank him slightly below Booker. And then Edwards, he's definitely not as good on ball as Edwards, but Ant also falls asleep off ball a lot. So it's kind of like, Ant's a good on ball defender. I don't know if he's an above average off ball defender, but that's an in the weeds conversation. But for me, Mitchell's really good. I assume you guys had him to round out your top 3 as well. Caelan, do you have anything to add to the Mitchell pick here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had, excuse me, I had Donovan third as well. I think that was kind of, the obvious pick. I also agree that there was kind of a big 3 at the shooting guard position. I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. I think it's interesting what you said about him, maybe being overrated by some. I think there are some guys in this league, once you get tagged with being that like truly awful defender, like Trae Young went through this where there were like 2-3 seasons where Trae Young was the worst defender we'd ever seen, maybe. And since then, he's kind of cleaned some of that up. He's obviously still not good. He's very small, but he's cleaned up. He tries on the defensive end. I think the same applies to Mitchell, where when he was in Utah, particularly in the playoffs, like the effort was just not there. Just not trying. He's a decent athlete. I would say he's a good athlete. And it's just like he wasn't trying. And I feel like once you get tagged with that, it's not like guys are going to follow your career around and measure your defensive. we don't know. We just remember you as a guy who can't guard, and I think that's no longer a fair way to characterize Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a guy who puts in effort. He's not great. He's never gonna be great at it, but he's fine. He's a fine defender, and the offense. We know he's electric, dynamo scorer. Can do anything you could ask him on the court. So I like Mitchell at 3.
No, that's great, and I agree. I just I thought it was such a good point you made in that we're probably underrating him, because I felt like I was looking at his numbers earlier this week, and I was just looking at it, and I was acknowledging the fact that he's scoring a ton at an efficient level, and he's making a huge impact on that side of the ball. But I was like, I'm looking at this, and for some reason, emotionally or mentally, I just don't care enough to put him like. There's probably an argument that he could be the second, maybe even the first best shooting guard in the league right now. But under no circumstances was I able to mentally get there, despite looking at the numbers and seeing that they're relatively similar and far and above a lot of others. And so it is funny how your reputation can really be difficult to change after a while. And I think it'll take a very significant event in order for that to take place. But for what it's worth, even if he was a bad defender before, he's statistically become a much better defender. I think, in his 3 last seasons with Utah, his defensive BPM was like -0.6, -0.2, -0.3, which is honestly not terrible. Not having a huge, negative impact there. But over the past 2 years in Cleveland, he's had a positive defensive BPM and a really high one at plus 1.2, higher than ever in his career. So he's getting better and better on the defensive end and making that impact on a team with a lot of defensive players, mind you, like a very defensive front court they have there. And so with that being said, it's interesting to see when that will actually go into effect in his career and with his reputation. When will people look up and be like, oh, Donovan Mitchell's actually pretty solid on the defensive end? And it might never happen because he's kind of tiny.
You're not beating those allegations, bro.
Yeah, it could just never happen. But it's funny, it's a tough ball game there. But yeah, I'd have him at the 3rd pick. I almost took another person over him, but I couldn't convince myself to do it. So he's safe right now at pick number 3.
For now.
Nice. Okay, so we're doing a snake draft. So I'll have the next pick as well. And I kind of hate this spot. As easy as the 3rd pick was, the 4th pick is almost the hardest one for me because I have a tier of my 4th guy and my 5th guy that are like coin flips. I've been talking to everyone in my life, should it be him? Should it be him? Even people that don't watch basketball. I'm like, which name do you like more?
These lists, bro.
I live for it.
Love it.
And so I will say, before I make this pick, part of this was influenced by my good friend Jacob. I talked to him about this list a lot, and he is a Celtics fan. So you guys can probably guess where I'm going. At number 4, I am taking Derrick White. Now, Derrick White is someone that really kind of challenges how I evaluate players because, and we've actually talked about Derrick White in depth on this podcast before, but to me, Derrick White might not elevate a bad team too much. I don't know if he makes a 10th seed up to an 8th seed if you put him on there, but he elevates good teams. He is a ceiling raiser as a role player. I think that's so important. He can do a little bit of everything on offense. He can run pick and roll for you. He can set screens for your primary ball handlers. He's turned into a very efficient offensive player. He was at 61% true shooting this last year, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Also, as people know that watched any Boston games this year, incredible rim protector at the guard spot. He had a 3% block rate, which is higher than a lot of centers. He's very impressive. Most guys we're going to talk about today are at a 1%, 1.2% block rate. So, he protects the rim in a very unique way. Obviously, he's a Heat fan. I feel like he kills us every game. So that definitely probably influences this a little bit for me. But I really like Derrick White. I'm excited to see who you guys have next, because to me, the next person was maybe even more obvious here. But I want to hear what you guys think about Derrick White and where you had him ranked. Lino, I'll throw it to you first on this one.
Yeah, man, I'm disappointed in you. That's crazy high to take Derrick White. And of all people to do it, it just feels like a plot twist in a movie that you'd come around here after all your time.
Damn.
After we played Would You Rather with Derrick White and you picked so many other people over Derrick White. You being here today with Derrick White in the 4th spot as the what in our draft makes him the 4th best shooting guard in the league. I just want to say that sentence out loud to see if anybody
It's personal growth, people. It's personal growth.
And I just have to say, I disagree. I think that's way too high. I respect a lot of what Derrick White brings to the game. He is obviously, the stats speak for themselves as far as what he can produce on the floor, and even the intangible, the eye test. You can see that he has just a really positive impact. Very incredibly skilled defensive player. This guy, if we were to take, the 3 people we have, and then the next person, and then the next person after that, Derrick White is not a shooting guard that can do what these other players do on a night-to-night basis. Derrick White, I feel, can thrive in his role as the 6th or 7th best player on his team as a shooting guard and do that job very well, whether that be for the Celtics or, this Hall of Fame Olympics team that we just saw. But I don't think Derrick White can do these same things as 1A or 1B. And when we're talking about the best shooting guards in the league right now, he's maybe the least. No, I won't say that. He's actually, when it comes to my rubric I talked about earlier, he's painfully similar to the style of play of Dwayne Wade. And I hate to say that, but that's true. But as far as, being able to reach that level without having 6 or 7 other top 10 players around you, I just can't see that happening, and I can't necessarily expect that out of him. And that's fine for a person's career. It's just why I wouldn't take him this high in a shooting guard draft right now. But it's not the craziest thing ever. He's a good player. It just is at least a little crazy. Caelan, what do you think?
I'm so proud of you, Micah. This is the right pick, brother. I had Derrick White 4th. I had Derrick White 4th.
No way. This is crazy. What are we doing here?
Let me tell you why. Derrick White is, to me, he's obviously, outside of the top 3 shooting guards, he's the best shooting guard in the league. If you were doing a draft, you were GM, building a team, I said pick a shooting guard. The first 3 guys are off the table already. Who are you going to pick? Derrick White's the guy. He can do anything you need him to do on a basketball court. Micah already talked about him protecting the rim. He's a really good defender, and he's one of those small guys that can just guard up, like Josh Hart or whoever. He understands how to. I don't know how guys figure out how you can do that. He has figured out, and he's pretty good at it. He's one of the best point guard defenders in the entire NBA. He can run your pick and roll. He's a guy on any given night could score 25 points on any given night. And one thing I like about Derrick White is he is a super winning player. The guy that I have 5th, I originally had my 5th guy above Derrick White. Then I said, well, what if he just switched teams? If Derrick White was on a worse team, he would do more. He absolutely would. I just think this guy's really solid. He's really good. Nothing about his game is flashy. Nothing about his flashy. He just runs the pick and roll, makes the right read. He can hit the open look. There's nothing on a court you would ask Derrick White to do that he would just, I fail. I can't do that. He's so solid, so well-rounded, such a winning player. Micah, you nailed it, bro. I had him 4th too.
I can't believe how much Derrick White love there is on this podcast.
Derrick White's really good.
Man.
He's super good.
Watch, man. He's saying he could score 25 points a game. He could do that, but so many of those are just going to be – he can get you 25 points a game because he's going to be wide open in the corner because his teammates are incredible, and he can take open threes in the corner really well, which is great. Mm-hmm. And he gets to shoot them at a high clip because of the system.
But if he wasn't – he was still –
if he didn't have those guys, if he was in a situation like Anthony Edwards is even in right now, he would not be scoring 25 points a game. He would be struggling offensive to create a shot and make a shot. Right now, he doesn't have to really create for himself very much, and he takes advantage of that really well. And, there's a lot of situations out there where he'd be with a good point guard, but
I really want to see, Lino. I'm very glad that you have the next pick because clearly, like we weren't like thinking in the same realm of like, you know, what makes these guys good. I thought shooting guard was such a different position because a lot of the players are just kind of bereft of like elite talent. So for me, that made it easier. Like when we were doing the point guards, like it was harder to get a guy like Drew Holiday high up on the list because there was just so much elite talent. Here it's like, I'd rather have a guy who's not maybe elite at anything, but he's really, really good, very solid. And the guys below him are, you know, they're not elite players. They're, you know,
Yeah, I think you guys are getting into what was my kind of biggest thought process through this entire exercise, which is what do you value more, high level role player, low level all star? And I feel like that's so much of a conversation about basketball. It's like, and we'll talk about more guys. This will kind of become more evident, but it's like we know a role player is going to help a winning team more. And these low level all stars we've seen don't always produce winning, but they're so productive. You might be looking at a 25-point per game guy versus a 15-point per game guy, but it's like, you know, how do they flourish in their individual situation? So that's why I'm excited for us to kind of flesh out this list because there's a lot to get into.
Lino, let me ask you a question, Lee.
Yeah.
Do you consider Drew Holiday with the Bucks a role player?
Yeah, that's a particularly difficult one. I think not. I think he's like probably the second, third most important player on that team.
What about with Boston?
He gets to play a role, yes.
Okay, same player. That's what I'm saying about Derrick White. If you put Derrick White in a different situation, no, he can't be like the lead ball handler, lead playmaker, lead scorer, and do all those things for a mediocre team. No, but on a decent team, like a situation where Drew Holiday was in, where he's not a role player on that team. He has a big role. He's the lead point guard. They need him to score close to 20 a night. They need him to play defense. They need him to do all these things. And he was able to do that. He's a smaller role in Boston, but you can clearly still see Drew Holiday's impact in that he's a winning player. Derrick White's the same exact thing for me. If you put Derrick White in, switched him with Drew Holiday back when he was in Milwaukee, it would be a similar thing. I just think he would be just as good as Drew Holiday was.
I think you guys are actually highlighting, and maybe I'm having an epiphany here that I think you guys have highlighted that I don't think my issue with Derrick White being 4 is because I don't think he's good enough. And I'll even relent that the next guy I was thinking about is probably not as good as Derrick White. But what I think I'm astonished by and what crisis I'm having right now is that the 4th best shooting guard in the league could not be a 1A or a 1B player. Like you're right. Derrick White would thrive probably as like the 3rd best player on a team, like Drew Holiday does and did. Which is awesome. And shout out to Derrick White for being able to do that. But that's crazy that that's where the league is right now. That the 4th best, like we're talking top 5 shooting guards in the league.
Yeah.
If we go back to what the top 5 shooting guards look like in like 2013, right, compared to the top 5 shooting guards that look like right now, they're all point guards right now. They all have that skill. But the fact that Derrick White is the best we have at the 4th spot is actually kind of insane. And so I take back some of the slander. I'm realizing now that a lot of it's my sadness about what used to be probably my favorite position in the league ever.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a huge tier break. That's why I did tiers on my list. Like it's the top 3, and then it's a chasm to the next shooting guard. Yeah. And I'm not saying Derrick White's awesome, like we highlighted, but you go from Donovan Mitchell, who's an All NBA guy, to a role player. Really good role player, but that's where you're at. So, Lino, we've spent a lot of time on Derrick White. Why don't you give us your next pick?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're in role player territory now, and it's just about who do you feel like is the best role player in that position. And so the next person I'd probably pick up is Malik Monk.
Wow.
Wow.
I like it.
Malik Monk, 6 man, just an incredible player out there. I feel like he has the heart of a guy you would want as a starting shooting guard, but he's happy to play whatever role makes sense for the team. I feel like if his usage was up to that like 29 to 30%, I think he'd have even more impressive numbers than he currently does. And I think if he was in a better ecosystem as well, I think he'd be scoring more. But as far as playing behind De'Aaron Fox, being probably the third or fourth option on the team. I think he just brings a lot to the table. I like the energy that he brings to the floor. I like that he can run his own unit if he needs to. And when guys have missed time, Malik Monk has shined in that way. And yeah, I just really like him as a player. So that's where I'm taking him, pick 5. I think of the remaining guys, he's probably the guy I trust the most to play winning basketball. And yeah, that's what I got there. Micah, what did you think of that pick?
Yeah, it's higher than I have Monk. I actually have him like 15, but again with shooting guard, these tiers are huge. Like there's a lot of guys that fall in within the range from 5 to 15, but for me, I have like 3 tiers that span that. So it's not a massive difference. I like Monk a lot. I would like to see him in a fully utilized shooting guard role. I'd like to see him as a full-time starter to see what that looks like. He's not super efficient right now scoring the ball, but I think he could be. But he does exist in a pretty good offensive ecosystem. But a lot of times it's him on the court without Fox. So he's having to run a lot of offense. But Sabonis does help with that quite a bit. But I like Monk. Defensively, he's not giving you a lot. That's why they probably are going to have to start Keon Ellis this year because you couldn't put Monk out there with DeRozan as well. There's just not enough defense. But Monk is solid, and I'm glad we got to highlight him because just like personally, he's one of my favorite players to watch. So, Caelan, what do you think of this pick?
This is what I was waiting on right here, bro. I knew we would have these Derrick White, Malik Monk disagreements. Malik Monk did not even make it into my brain. I didn't even think about him. Nowhere near the top 14.
Hey, shout out to Malik Monk, man.
Yeah, I didn't
even. That's the cool thing about these lists, though. He gets some love. Like it's eye of the beholder.
No, but this is what I wanted though, because I figured that we would be thinking like wildly different people. So this is what I expected. I did not even think about Malik Monk at all. He's not on my list. I don't think. Well, listen, I'll say something positive about Malik Monk because I do like him as a player. I just don't think he's on this list. My favorite thing about Malik Monk is that he has crazy passing chops. He can throw some of the how did he do that type passes. Malik Monk has got that in his bag. Some left-handed hook passes, he's got some nasty stuff in his bag. I love that about Malik, and he is a bucket getter off the bench. But the guys I have above him, they're just like they're more serious players. That little off the bench come in and just give us buckets and we don't really care about anything else you do role. You could put like 50 guys in that. I'm not even being funny. You could put 50 guys in that role.
That's fair. That's very fair. Malik Monk is just my favorite one of those guys.
And that's what a lot of this list is. Right. We have a lot of these kind of guys on this list.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, there's a guy like, once we get to about 9 and 10 on my list, I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw out a name that y'all like, bro, what? But,
okay.
So just Malik Monk was just not my flavor for this.
Speaking of guys that Caelan likes, Lino and I have failed because my 5th best shooting guard in the league is still available, and it's Caelan's favorite non-Laker in the entire league.
That's my 5th guy too.
So Caelan, go ahead and take your guy at number 6.
Desmond Bane. That's who I had at number 5. I originally had Desmond Bane above Derrick White, but what I realized was that if you take Derrick White and put him in that Desmond Bane position, particularly last season when there was no Ja or whatever, and it was just, here, bro, here's the ball every play, you can go do whatever you want. He will go and get 25 points a game. He really would. He would be, just as, not lethal, but somebody's got to get buckets on a bad NBA team, and I think Derrick White could easily do that. But Desmond Bane, lethal elite shooting from this guy, okay? Single-handedly crushed the myth that you can be jacked and be a good shooter. Look at this guy, okay? Absolute muscle hamster. I love this player. Last season, I think that opportunity, I'm a everything happens for a reason type of guy. Okay, so like that season from hell that the Grizzlies had benefited them greatly and a lot of their guys. Okay, that's how we find out about G.G. Jackson and some of the other guys. But I thought the year that Desmond Bane had, just being able to handle the ball every play and being able to set the table for other guys is going to be huge, because that was probably like his biggest weakness beforehand, was that he just was not a great. I mean, listen, isolation scoring from Desmond Bane, he's not really giving you that. He can't really beat guys in one-on-one situations. He's kind of stiff. I mean, look how swole he is. He's kind of stiff. Not the quickest, so he doesn't beat guys well. But outside of that, he does everything. Like, he can play defense. He can handle the ball. His shooting is obviously the number one thing. He's so elite. But I think Desmond Bane is just a really winning style player that does everything you need in a modern style game. So that's why I had him fifth. Lino, you're giving me a face.
Oh, sorry. I got lost.
What do you think?
There, but I was looking at some other stuff. But I like the pick. I skipped over Bane because I was like, I just want to take. I don't think, because I made such an argument about, I felt like there were players better than Derrick White, and I looked at it, I was like, I don't think there are players better than Derrick White, and so let me just take my favorite player here that's left on the board. But I do think Bane is incredible. I think if there was anybody that could be better than Derrick White, it's probably him. And I just agree that I love that he's just this strong muscle man that shoots threes. Like, anybody could do it, man. If you're out there in the gym right now at your local Gold's Gym, bench pressing 275, you could still shoot a basketball. Just go give it a shot. So shout out to Bane for.
I used to believe in that too, that you couldn't be. I
used to be like, hey, some of these guys need to stop working out so much. I used to think like, hey, you guys are messing up your shot mechanics by having all this muscle. What the hell?
Yes.
And he disproved that. So shout out to him for that. But yeah, I think that's a solid pick. Michael, what did you think?
Yeah, Bane rules. Him and Derrick White were a coin flip for me. They're that 4 or 5 tier. So all in with this pick. I feel like they're a fun debate because obviously Derrick White's giving you a lot more in defense. I trust Bane if he has to be like a number one option in a pinch, like if it's a playoff series and your number one's in foul trouble or something. I'd probably feel more confident in a 6-minute stretch where Desmond Bane just has to run the offense. But regardless, yeah, awesome player. Very jealous of Caelan's draft so far with Anthony Edwards and Desmond Bane. That's a very solid first 2 picks. So, Caelan, you, because of the snake draft, have the next pick as well. So, who are you taking at pick 7?
Okay, so after those first 5 guys, this is when you enter.
You get in the woods.
Oh man. Like this tier of player, they're all really kind of the same, and I kept jostling them back and forth. But the guy who's number 6 on my list,
he doesn't even want to say it.
I don't, because I don't like this guy. I don't like him. Number 6 is CJ McCollum.
Oh, this is not who I thought.
I think he's the 6th best shooting guard in the league. He had a really strong season. The shooting numbers were excellent. He shot the ball very well. The playmaking, he's got and the Pels have such a difficult dynamic, especially going into this this new year when they just added DeJounte Murray. I guess they're gonna just roll into the year with Ingram. It looks like there's nothing happening with that, but CJ has got to understand that he's got to be a more willing passer on this team, because he really is the guy. Like if he's willing to just set guys up, I think CJ is a pretty good passer. I think he knows what to do and knows how to do it. But I think his whole life he's been wired to score. The first half of his career, he was just kind of getting buckets. I think as he enters this second half of his career, he's going to be a more type leading veteran player who just does the right things. So that's why I'm kind of projecting a little bit. I'm kind of projecting that he's going to be more of a serious kind of veteran player on this new look Pels team. But the talent is there, the shooting is there. Not a stellar defender. He is undersized. I don't like that at all. But I think this season, CJ is going to continue the elite shooting that he had, that he displayed last year, and I think we're going to get even more of the passing chops. The Pels were so much better when those guys were passing the ball. So I'm thinking CJ is going to be a very serious player this season. CJ at 6. Ugh.
Lino, what do you think?
That's not bad, and
it's not good. I know.
It's like It's like I understand the begrudging nature of taking that pick because at this point where we are in the draft, like he's one of the few 20-point per game scorers we have left. And like you just can't ignore like from a shooting guard, you need a guy who can get you 20. Like ideally, at best, you want a guy that gets you 25 or 30, but the next best thing is a 20-point per night guy. I agree that when the ball is moving around with the Pelicans, CJ looks incredible. When the ball sticks with CJ, sometimes the game looks really ugly. And that happens more often than I'd want it to. When he gets into that mode, it's like derogatory. It's like you don't want CJ to get into that mode. Like you want him being a team player.
The chop wood, carry water mode.
Yes.
We always have that book with him.
Oh
He's
my
better
god.
when he does that.
Yeah, and so we'll see what happens with him. I think he does have a lot of great play still left in him, and in the right situations, he can really thrive. And I'm not mad at that pick. I probably would have taken him too as well, right there. But at this point of the draft, that's probably one of the few picks where I'm like less excited about the pick, but I know it's right. Like these rest of the
Yeah.
picks, I'm excited about because I love these guys, but I know they're not right picks. So
Yeah.
we're gonna keep moving here. I think I have the next pick right at 8.
Mhm.
All right, we're talking the 8th best shooting guard if I was the one deciding. And with that pick, I think I'm still undecided here, but this is the guy I got to go with. I got to go with Austin Reeves.
You playing. Nah, you just playing. He just playing, y'all.
I'm playing. Sorry.
See, I'm gonna turn this damn chat off. You playing,
Oh
Lavine.
my gosh. But I do the real decision here is
You bastard.
I'm gonna ask rather than say like what is Zach Lavine?
Yeah, that's who I had.
Yeah.
It's Zach Lavine, right? But it's like
I have
what
one
is he
guy
now?
in Lavine.
I just like I'm taking him here because statistically he's great. 24 points per game, almost 25 really. Defense is almost non-existent. He had a really rough and tumble, past few years as far as just like what his season has looked like health-wise. The situation with the team doesn't look good. I don't even know if he's getting along with his teammates at this point. So it's just there's so many question marks around him. It was hard to take him here, but I'm taking him here anyways, just in case, the Zach Lavine that we know him to have been before at his best could possibly still be there. There's not exactly a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be there. So I'm taking Zach Lavine here. He's an electric scorer at times. There are days when he's more efficient. There are days when he's less efficient. He can move the ball around. You'd like to see, I think, just generally more effort from him and more winning basketball. But otherwise, there's just a lot of talent there. So that is my pick for the eighth pick. Micah, what'd you think about that?
I get it, man. Like we're at the point, there's only like 2 guys left, or 1 guy now that has been an all-star. Not that that's everything, but that counts for something, just like prestige. I'm looking at Lavine's 2023 stats because 2024 was like 25 games in a weird year where he was trying to get traded. But 2023 he was 25, 4-4, above average true shooting. I mean, he can score. Like he's efficient. He's not just like a chucker. Like he's a high level 3-level efficient scorer. What else does he give you? Very little, right? There's not a lot of passing going on. There's not a lot of rebounding. There's certainly not defense. But it also, to me, is worth noting that the 2 franchises he's been most involved with are the Timberwolves and the Bulls, at times where both have been total dumpster fires. I think if he wasn't on this massive contract, he would be a really fun reclamation project for a good team. Like maybe not even as a 6-man. Like maybe he just plays a little better defense, and he could be a starting shooting guard for a really good playoff team. I think in the right role if he was refined the right way. So I love this pick here. I think of my guys remaining, I only had 1 guy over him, so I'm good with this. Caelan, you agree to this one as well?
Yeah, I had Zach Lavine next. I kind of wrestled with him, CJ, back and forth. 2 of my least favorite players, probably to ever play basketball. I despise these 2 players. Hate the way they play.
That's so funny.
Zach is lucky. No, it's not luck, but Zach should be happy that he went to play for Team USA and got a gold medal. That's the only evidence that you can win with Zach Lavine on your team.
You played some defense too.
Yeah, and I don't buy I'm not into the excuse making when a player loses every year of their career, and then people say, "Well, the teams." It was him. It was him. It's he's part of the losing. I just, but he does belong here, in my opinion. I don't.
Fair. Okay. Well, we'll keep moving. We'll go to my pick. Value for any of you fantasy football guys. I'm about to select who I had as the 6th best shooting guard with the 9th pick. So good draft grade for me. This guy is somebody that, because of his contract and his injuries, I feel like has become underrated. At number 9, I'm selecting Bradley Beal. So Beal, like, health concerns for sure. Like, can he play more than 50 games? It's rare. But when he played last year, he was very solid, like better than I realized. He was at 18 a game at 60% true shooting. He shot 43% from 3. Now, they were probably open, but again, we're talking about guys that can shift into more of a role player role.
How was he in the playoffs?
Well, I think offensively, he was able to do that really well with Phoenix. Now, the problem comes defensively because of how their team is constructed. He was supposed to be like their perimeter stopper in some regards, and that's just not right. Like, he should be guarding probably the worst perimeter player on the other team. But with where we're at this list, I like his ability to get to the basket. He's one of the only guys on this Phoenix team that shoots about a third of his shots at the rim. He's always been a great driver. He still was this year. He shot, 64% at the rim, one of the higher numbers for the guys on this list. So he can pass a little bit. He's obviously the number 1 with a bullet in Washington for so long. So he can run offense, not necessarily great offense, but he can run offense. I think at this point in the list, I'm happy with Beal here. And I do feel like the injuries and contract have kind of made people underrate him. So, Caelan, what do you think of that one?
This is pick number 8?
I think it's pick number 9.
Pick number 9, actually.
Okay. That's decent value. I had Bradley Beal as ranked 8th, and that's probably that's probably still a little generous. I don't think he's very good. I really don't. He was terrible in the playoffs. Like, he just didn't belong. This
is crazy, guys. We are at the 8th to 10th spot in the top 10 shooting guards, and we have barely anything positive to say about these guys. Like, this is like a conversation like if we were talking about the bottom 500 players in the league or something. We are having like the tone of voice, like the language we're using, it's like conversations around like the 15th best player on a roster. We're talking about the 10th best, 8th, 9th, 10th best player of this position. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm probably being rude. I just don't like Bradley Beal. I don't like his game, and the reason I brought up the playoffs is because I thought he was atrocious. He was really bad. He looked like he didn't belong.
The whole team looked bad, though.
Yeah, he was the worst of the bad.
Well, Nurkic was out there.
Nurkic might find his way into the damn top 10 at this point.
What do you think about Bradley Beal, Lino?
I think he's washed. I think he's done.
Yeah.
You can stick a fork in him. He's cooked. Talented guy when he can play 100%, but he just can't get to that level every night when healthy. And then he can't stay healthy either, which is no fault of his own. He's had a long, illustrious career of, making a lot of money and shooting the ball a bunch. And shout out to him. But he's probably still in this spot, but I don't project him as being any better next year. So I didn't really have him in my top 10. I wasn't really planning on drafting him.
Yeah, real one.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's bold, but I like it.
Moving forward.
So I have the number 10 pick, and I have pretty much the polar opposite of Bradley Beal here. At number 10, I'm taking Alex Caruso. So Alex Caruso, I feel like him versus Bradley Beal is actually kind of the perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like low-level offensive creator or super high-level role player. Caruso, the defense is just unbelievable. He can guard Tyrese Maxey. He can guard Kevin Durant. He can probably guard like Miles Turner if you need him to. Just a tremendous player on that side of the court. Can blow up actions. Just an incredible defensive player. Offensively, the shooting was much improved last year. Like we're up to almost 5 3-point attempts a game at close to 40%, I believe. So that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I mean, that's all you'd want from him. We talked about it a good bit in our group chat. Like, is he more of like a 3-and-D wing? Does he have some guard skills? And honestly, looking into it, I sided more with you guys as I looked into it. I don't think he should be running like more than 3 pick and rolls a game or something.
Right.
But like the Bruce Brown, like screen for the good guy, short roll creation stuff he used to do with LeBron, like that's valuable on offense. And if the shooting sustains, which I think in OKC he'll get even better looks, I think it will. So Alex Caruso, just a winning player. To me, he's just like slightly worse Derrick White, a little less offensive juice, but gives you a lot of that same stuff. The only thing that holds me back a little bit on him is health and minutes played. I don't know if it's like the training/coaching staff doesn't trust him to play more minutes because his body will break down or because of how hard he plays, but I don't think he's ever played 30 minutes a game in his career. And I don't project him to in Oklahoma City just because of the depth they have with perimeter defense. But a lot of these other guys are close to like 33, 34 minutes a game. So if he could be on the court more, that'd be awesome. But again, that just speaks to how good he is because I'd like to see more of him. So, Lino, I'll throw it to you first here on your fellow Aggie. What do you think of Alex Caruso here?
I think this is a good spot. Shout out to College Station's finest. He is kind of that prototypical flipped player as far as defensively. He's locked in and is probably, besides maybe Ant and Derrick White, like probably brings the most to the table defensively of the list we have so far, but lacks a little bit on that offensive side, but can contribute in a way that is meaningful. So he's not like a negative on the defensive or on the offensive end. So I think he's earned that spot. The health thing is definitely what puts him back. If his health was better, if he was able to play more games, and I think if he had a slightly higher usage rate where he could prove that he can produce more offensively, he could make his way higher on the list as the people above him. The prospect for them just isn't great moving forward, and he still, I think, has plenty of career left in him. So I like that spot. I didn't have him at 10, but I like that pick. I think at this point it just gets kind of random with the picks. What did you
Yeah.
think, Caelan?
Yeah, I didn't have Caruso on my list. I guess I could have threw him at 12. I like Caruso a lot. I like him infinitely more than CJ or Zach Lavine or Bradley Beal. I like him way more. But this is how I'm trying to be objective. I don't actually think he's a better player than them. He's asked to do so much less. And when we talk about a guy like Drew Holiday or even Derrick White, like those guys can and do a lot on the offensive end. Like, Drew Holiday is a real point guard. Not a great one, not one you probably, want to start and have running every pick and roll rep on your team. But Drew Holiday is a real point guard. So I thought like offensively, him and Derrick White, they do enough where I could put them on the list. Caruso feels more like a defensive specialist. Obviously he's a top 10 like winning style player, no question. But I don't know. I just didn't necessarily throw him on my list. But you guys know, Caruso's great. I love Caruso, so no issue
Yeah.
with you putting him on your list.
Nice. All right, Lino, who you got at 11? Also, just before you guys go, I'm so excited to hear you have these two last spots because I have a tier from like 9 to 17 for this group. So I'm excited to see. So, Lino, who do you have at 11?
At 11, we're gonna go with KCP.
Okay.
Container Caldwell Pope.
Interesting.
I just think in a similar vein as Alex Caruso, but maybe a little bit older. Actually, I think he just has that prototypical 3-and-D value and probably one of the more valuable contracts in the league and like valuable players. I know he was well sought after this past free agency just because what he brings to the team. And at this, in this tier that we're working in right now, I feel like he has the most valuable skill sets as far as being a 3-and-D player, probably one of the better defenders of the people we have on the list. And I just appreciate that right now. First, we're outside of the top 10. These are kind of breaking in there. There's probably some guys that have more potential to actually be in the top 10 in the next year or so that I'm leaving off here. But as far as guys that have value right now, and with the way we've drafted so far, he's getting my 11th pick. Caelan, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So this is the toughest part of the list, and it really kind of comes down to how you're seeing it. I will say the KCP pick that crosses the threshold of completely unfair. He is not is come on. What the hell are we doing here? KCP. This pick might offend me. I don't know. KCP is a nice piece, I guess. But
I mean, it's what we've been talking about. He's an elite role player. I mean,
That's what I was saying.
he has two jobs. Yeah, he has two jobs, and he's great at it. I mean, he's awesome on defense this year, and he can shoot the ball. And he can't dribble or pass, but they don't ask him to.
Yeah,
his defense is solid. Let's not overstate it. It's not.
Well, I felt like this past year was one of his better defensive years, but I had him at 14 just because I project that to slip a little bit as he gets older.
You feel like he's in the same tier as like Caruso defensively?
No. I had Caruso at 8. I had KCP at 14.
Yeah. No, okay. Yeah, I thought you said you had so-and-so. You had Malik Monk at 14.
Monk was 15.
Oh, 15.
And then McCollum was 17.
Okay.
McCollum being 17 is crazy.
Did you want to comment on KCP, Micah?
No, you guys hit on it. It's just like, you know what you're getting. He's solid, and he can be a starting shooting guard on a title team. That's probably not something you could say for some of the guys we've already listed. So that's something. Caelan, you have the final pick. What are you thinking?
Okay, I have 3 guys on my list that I have not said. I guess I could just pick the highest guy. I thought I was going to get to pick my number 10 because I wanted to cause dissent in the in the chat here. I don't pick number 9. Well, you know what? I'll pick the more interesting name. I have number 10. I have Jalen Green here at number 10.
Whoa. Let's get into
We're
it.
mad about KCP. Okay. Just drafting bad players now. All right.
Jalen Green is definitely, no question, a million times more talented than KCP. Let's not get it confused. He's a way better player than him. KCP's just asked to do almost nothing, so he looks good. Jalen Green, I mean, you saw the flash of the pan. KCP could never do what Jalen Green was able to do. Granted, it was a small sample size, but I feel like that's the electricity that people have been waiting on with Jalen Green. I think Jalen Green is an incredibly talented player. I don't think that he's in the perfect spot. I think ultimately Jalen Green probably has to go somewhere else to really prove me right that he's an awesome player. I think he's really good, dude. I just think his setup is weird, especially when you bring in Fred VanVleet. And I've mentioned all this before, but they have the Jokic thing going on with their center Alperen Sengun, so he's going to have the ball a lot. And then obviously Fred VanVleet's their point guard. There's just not a lot of ball handling for him to do, especially late in the game when they don't give him the ball. They just kind of have him stand in the corner. He's an off-ball guy. That's not what he does, right? When Sengun got hurt, I thought that we really got to see what he can do. Like, he's an electric player. He plays very fast and get down the court. He can shoot the ball. Not been as efficient as we would like. I understand that, but I think he can still be a good shooter, an efficient shooter. I like Jalen Green's. Very underrated, in my opinion. I think he's just kind of bogged down. They have a ton of young talent in Houston. A ton. Okay. Jalen Green needs a little more room, I feel. But Jalen Green, number 10, I'll take him. Just so you guys know, I had DeJounte Murray, number 9, but that's boring. It's kind of a boring pick. Nothing to really talk about. So Jalen Green, go ahead. Give me your hate, Lino. Lino's been staring at me all my picks. If you listen to this on podcast and not on YouTube, Lino is staring me down.
That's crazy you think so, because I've literally just been looking at stats this whole time. I don't even have the video up. I can't even see y'all. I don't even know. But dude, if you can project the talent is there, and if you felt really excited about the flash in the pan that we've seen when Sengun was out, and you feel like this guy can get better, that's perfectly fair. And if you want to buy low so you can sell high later, I understand that. Jalen Green is not a good basketball player. Jalen Green
Facts.
is not actually better at anything than KCP right now. Like he's not a better shooter. He's not a better defender. You might want to say he's a better passer. I guess I didn't really see it. Like he just is
Okay,
a young
he's
guy.
definitely he's Jalen Green is a lead guard. He could be a lead guard. You could put the ball in his hands and he can get to the cup. Okay,
On
KCP cannot dribble the ball. KCP literally is a guard who can't dribble. Like let's stop the KCP nonsense. He's asked to do nothing but come off of a Jokic handoff where the guy gets screened. He gets a wide open mid range jumper. He's oh my god, he's so great. Okay, who cares?
Okay.
He's come on. KCP is nowhere near Jalen Green. Jalen Green's a top 2 pick. What are you talking about? He's so talented.
I mean, there are a lot of bad top 2 picks.
A ton of bad top 2
but
picks. Shout out to James Wiseman.
Here's my thing, and we've had this conversation this whole show, and it's, do you like the high-level offensive guy that's not super efficient, or do you like the role player that can just do his role and nothing else? And this is the same conversation. I feel like every tier we've had the same discussion. But as we get lower, to me, it gets more interesting because, like, Caelan, like you're saying, I like this take by you because it could look awesome in a couple years if he flourishes. But I'm somebody that's low on him. I had him ranked 21, and I ranked 21.
Oh, hell no. Come on, man.
Yeah. He's just not good right now. He's not good at anything. Like, he's bad at the rim. He's bad at mid-range. He's bad from 3. He's bad at passing. He turns it over a lot. Like, I don't know what he's horrible on defense. I don't know what he's good at right now. He could be good, but we are 3 years in to him being bad.
Okay. He's not why are you saying he's bad at all these things? That's not true. He's not bad at it. That's not true. Second of all, if you asked any NBA player with 2 feet to do what KCP does, shoot wide open mid-range jumpers, stand in the corner. He played with LA, the best passer, LeBron. Okay, stand in the corner when you're open, I'll pass to you. Play with the best passer, Jokic, stand in the corner. Like, he's asked to do nothing on offense. He has the easiest job in sports. Like, KCP is not a guy we're looking at like, okay, he's not talented. He's not.
That's fair. And I don't want to get too bogged down into the KCP comparison because I feel like that kind of gets us off the rails. We're just talking about Jalen Green. But so what do you project? Like, do you think he can be the lead creator on an above average offense? Let's start there.
I think that, yes, I'll say yes to that. I'll say yes to that. I really and truly feel like we have not seen Jalen Green. Like, his first couple years in the league, he was being coached by Paul Silas. What the hell is that? He didn't have a real coach. Like, the team, like, what situation was that? There was no vets. He's playing on like this, like he has not had a real chance on a real team. Like, the Rockets were good last year, but the team was just bogged down. Too many players, too many ball handlers. If he had space with a real coach, like, he's not had an opportunity. And you guys can give me the numbers, that's fine. There's no way on this earth you can deny his talent. It's clear as day. He has dynamo written all over him. He was electric when Şengün went down. Like, are you going to tell me? I know it's a small sample size, but like, none of that was impressive to you. He's electric.
It was. He did that at the end of last season too, though, when they were playing a lot of bad teams. A lot of teams were shutting guys down. He had a big run to end last year. So, and I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but it does give me a little pause. But as you were just talking, to me, I feel like if you took the names away, you could have been describing Malik Monk. How do you? Well, I think Lavine's a lot better, but how do you compare Monk to what you project Jalen Green to be? Do you think he'll be a lot better than Monk, similar to Monk? What do you think of those two?
I think Jalen Green's a more talented player than Malik Monk.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
What about with Zach Lavine? You know, earlier we were talking about, you know, after a couple seasons with a bad team, it's kind of your fault. Like we can't excuse that. At what point, like, you know, Jalen Green is young. He's crazy young. Like, he's got, I think, a lot of leash before we should really make up our minds about him. I'm obviously leaning a certain way towards how that's going to play out, but how many more, like, if the situation doesn't change, do you feel like he'll have the opportunity to thrive? Or do you feel like if he can't get out of Houston and make things happen, that this is going to be his career, much like Zach LaVine's? Like,
Well, first of all, I'll say he's not better than Zach Lavine. I had Zach Lavine 7th. I had Jalen Green 10th. So I think they're close, but I think Zach Lavine's better. And Zach's been in the league a long time. Jalen, the Rockets were good last year. The Rockets were not embarrassing. They weren't a disaster. The Rockets were a respectable basketball team. You can't take all that credit and give it to whoever. Like Jalen Green played on a team that was young, that people did not expect them to be as good as they were last year. It was a very competitive basketball team. I think Jalen Green had something to do with that. He was a starter, right?
Yeah, they were better when he was off the court, though.
Okay.
This has been amazing. I just want to say
it's fun. I think these are we agree on a lot of stuff. So I think this is fun to talk about, and I'll be psyched if he's awesome. But I think it's interesting to talk to somebody that views him differently than I do, because that's how you learn new stuff. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say for sure.
Okay, well, we might we might just have to agree to disagree for now. But I'll tell you what. Irrational confidence is going to be on Jalen Green watch.
Absolutely. Every good game.
Every good one, all the bad ones.
Y'all know what would be the craziest twist of events is this past summer when Houston was like trying to get their like star wing. They're interested in Durant, all these guys. There are official reports that came out that said they talked to Miami about Jimmy and Jalen Green was in the deal. If that happens and Jalen Green ends up on the Heat, the content for this podcast,
bro,
oh my God. Don't do this to me.
I hope it doesn't happen, but if it did, oh my gosh.
No, you guys already have Jalen Green as Tyler Hero, who I had ranked 11th, by the way.
See, that's the other thing I was gonna say. Is he just less? Is he more athletic, Tyler Hero?
Yeah. Yeah, I like Jalen Green more than Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is,
his shots go in.
I'm about to extend this podcast for another 35 minutes. If I
no, we gotta cut it. We gotta cut it. Okay, I'll do the outro, and then we can keep talking. Decide if we want to keep it or not. So for everyone on Irrational Confidence, thank you guys for tuning in to our shooting guard rankings. We hope you had a fun time discussing one of the stranger positional groups that the NBA has to offer. As always, we're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube now. We're posting our videos every week if you want to see our faces. If you want to see Lino scowling at Caelan as he talks, you can check it out on YouTube. Any questions? We'd love to hear you guys tell us who your best shooting guards are, who you thought we were right or wrong about. Comment sections are obviously great for that, but also confidenceirrational@gmail.com is perfect too. So for myself, Micah, my fellow hosts and friends, Lino and Caelan, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you for small forwards sometime soon. So let's get back into Jalen Green. Yeah, we don't have to, but I just wanted us to have a good cut point if we need it.
No, I feel that. I do think Jalen Green is definitely better than Tyler Hero, bro. Definitely.
Right now, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I get what you're saying about flashes, and I get like projecting those like in a couple years once it all comes together, but he's just like not super good right now.
Why? Okay. When you say he's bad at everything, okay. I think like that's when you lose me, bro. Like that's a bad faith argument. Come on. No, he's bad at everything.
I feel you. What my thing is, and I tried to list it out because I don't mean to say like he's a bad basketball player. Obviously, he'd be the G League MVP, but right now he shoots.
That was a slight. Oh, that was not a compliment. That's a slight, bro. What are you?
I really hope Houston fans don't hear this because they ride for him so hard. I'm definitely going to get
He would be the G League MVP.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of guys, I hope, will be the G League MVP.
Well, you were talking about, like, you could see him being the lead creator. And in my head, it was like, yeah, in Sioux Falls. Like, so, I mean, he's talented for sure. But, like, Malik Monk is hyper athletic. He's a good passer. He can really shoot it. So to me, I'm like Malik Monk is what Jalen Green should be aiming for right now.
Malik Monk?
Yeah, I mean Malik Monk's better at shooting, passing.
Now we're talking about guys we just like. Like we like Malik Monk is a more likable player than Jalen Green.
I guess I could understand if maybe you look at the stats and feel like the numbers are just numbers, but statistically, Jalen Green is a below average shooting. Like his shooting percentages are mid range, 3-point, or just below average. His passing, like the passing to turnover ratio is below average. But if you're like seeing something out there and defensively, I don't know anyone who, thinks he's like defensively sound. But what do you see out there that makes you think like, oh, actually those numbers aren't painting the picture that he's actually better than a guy like Malik Monk, who statistically is like shooting at a higher percentage, shooting at a relatively similar, usage rate, but is doing so more efficiently at the three levels, is maybe someone you could trust a little bit more defensively, but maybe has less potential for talent there. What does that look like for you?
Malik defensively is just as terrible as anybody else. He's terrible. When I watch, I'm not a big stats guy, bro. I understand. I watch basketball. Jalen Green, when he's on, he jumps off of my screen, bro. Mm-hmm. The way talent just jumps off your screen. You can just see it. That guy is better than everyone else. Okay. And I get it's not always clicking for Jalen Green. Okay. Now he's really trying to figure out, I hope he's got a real coach, how to play winning basketball and how to use his strengths, his game in a way that's conducive to a team winning environment. I'm sure that's been very difficult when he's probably just been a give me the ball and go guy, even when he got to the league and he had bro, Paul Silas, ask any Rockets fan in your life. They'll tell you he's fucking terrible. He cannot coach and he let the team just do whatever the fuck. It was an AAU team. I feel like that hurt him. But I think
that's a lot of what we saw, I think. And I think that's the thing is that like I feel like you saw a lot of that flash in the pan that happened at the end of the season. I didn't really watch any of the Rockets games. Maybe like a couple of them down the stretch when it was looking like, where they're going to fall as far as the play-in tournament and stuff like that. But a lot of the Jalen Green tape I saw was usually stuff like early mid-season. And I just remember looking at it and being like, before even ever seeing the numbers, I was like, yuck. Why is he taking these shots like this? And what is this decision?
If you don't have a defender with athleticism and quickness, I'm going to tell you for a fact you have zero fucking chance to guard this guy. He's unguardable if you're not quick. He's lightning fast. He's super quick. And the Lakers play him 4 times a year. Okay? Yeah. Let me tell you, I know these AR's a guy who tries. AR gets ate up on the defensive end. He's not quick. If you're not quick, he can stay with you. He can guard you. He'll try. Okay? Jalen Green kills the Lakers because we're too slow. Everybody on our team is too slow. He lights us up. We can't stay in front of him. It's the same reason De'Aaron Fox kills the Lakers. He's quick as fuck. He's one of the most athletic guards in the league. He's super athletic, bro. He is 0 to 60. Okay, I like that. I like athletes. I like guys who can put pressure on the rim. The shooting, he can shoot the ball. He's I don't know. I feel like it's like where are you at on like Trae Young, right? Trae Young can shoot the piss out of the ball. Don't tell me he can't. And you go look at the numbers, he's not efficient. And you watch some of his games, Trae will give you a 2 for 7.
Sure.
It's not good. But he can shoot the piss out of the ball. I think Jalen Green's the same way. He's just going to be streaky.
Do you think it's like a shot selection thing for him? Like if he took easier shots, it would be better?
Maybe. I just think he'll always be streaky, always, because it's who he is. Like he's like an electric type player. He plays with that swag that things kind of have to be going right for him. Almost
to me, that sounds like a 6-man though.
Maybe.
I could see. With that being said, like I could see where you're coming from, is from the perspective like this guy could be. I could take this guy over Tyler Hero, and if his shot actually started following a little bit better, he would be getting to the rim way more than Tyler Hero ever has because he's way faster, has much more athletic talent. And and that
Definitely
could
has more
translate
upside
to,
than Hero,
yeah,
for
like the
sure.
upside is there, and he's worse than Hero statistically right now. I just looked at it, but like if you feel like that can change, then yeah, I would definitely take Jalen Green over him.
He's got to make the shots. I get that,
Yeah.
but if you want to talk about the shot percentages, I don't really have a comeback for that. He's got to put the fucking ball on the rim.
Yeah.
But
And if they start falling this year, he might be a borderline all-star. Like, for him, he's a scorer, so he's got to score efficiently. But if he does,
that's the problem is that like team fit, because he doesn't play a lick of fucking defense. Like it'll always be tough to start him. Like
yeah,
and you said at the top of the show, like the point guard don't guard, bitch. You gotta play some defense. You gotta help us out. He don't do that.
Yeah.
So maybe he is a 6-man.
yeah.
Did he play any point guard in school or anything? Is that a move for him? Like,
He just
should he be
he
doing
was
that?
always a give me the ball, get the fuck out the way guy, because he has so much
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. Like that's hurt him. Like it was talking about raw talent, bro. Give me fucking Jalen Green. Yes, if you have a good coach him up, bro. Get him right, because he's got the talent that you cannot make other guys as fast and strong and athletic as he is.
For sure.
He's got to figure some of this shit out, and I'm betting that he will. I guess
That's a good bet. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And Udoka's a good coach to me, who doesn't put up with any bullshit. So like he might get the best out of him. Like I could see it going well. So yeah, for me it was a right now thing how I rank him. But yeah, he's definitely got. I mean, he's, like you said, number 2 pick. Tyler Hero's the number 14 pick. If there's a reason those guys were taken where they were, and it's about upside. And
yeah,
Jalen Green definitely has a ton of that.